तो हेलो एवरीवन। तो अभी तक हम लोगों ने कल्चर तो स्टार्ट कर दिया था पढ़ना। ठीक। तो लास्ट वीडियो में आपने देखा कि हम लोगों ने कल्चर को समझा था, मीनिंग कल्चर की समझी थी। देन हम लोगों ने कल्चर की डेफिनेशंस देखी थी खूब सारी। ठीक। डेफिनेशंस में हमने मतलब सर्टेन क्राइटेरियाज देखे थे, स्पेसिफिक फीचर्स देखे थे। एंड देन हमने ये देखा था कि डेफिनेशंस ओवर द टाइम कैसे इवॉल्व कर रही है, कैसे विद स्कूल ऑफ थॉट्स different different definitions आ रही हैं and the scope of culture was being defined accordingly. तो आज हम लोग इसी पे ही थोड़ा सा और आगे बढ़ते हैं, नेचर ऑफ कल्चर की बात करते हैं हम लोग। तो पहले तो लाइक बिफोर वी स्टार्ट द नेचर ऑफ कल्चर, these I have written like two definitions for you all. Now these two definitions are actually very easy and it can be used everywhere. For example, Herkovitz, Man and His Work, this is his book, and in this he gave the definition of culture as that as man-made part of environment. Similarly, for B. Marinovsky, in his book The Scientific Theory of Culture, 1944, he defines culture as the instrumental reality and the apparatus for the satisfaction of the biological and derived needs. So you can use any of the definitions, or you can even use the definition given by E.B. Taylor. That is the first definition of culture which we have given. So, like, if a question of nature of culture is being asked, when you have to, when you are starting to write the answer, you have to start with the definition of culture, and for that perspective, use any of the definition. After giving the definition, we will then move on to the specific points of culture. Okay. Now let's begin into more going into more detail. Uh, okay. So when we are like in the video of society, also we discussed about the nature of nature of society. So here we will discuss about the nature of culture. Now again, when we talk about anything, about the culture, its nature, so it basically includes everything, everything which we study regarding culture. You can write anything, like you can write about culture, its definition, its meaning, its characteristics, its elements, and like anything, everything somewhere or the other is related to culture only. Yes, but as per the book, as per the notes which I am referring to, like there are specific points which they should be there, which must be in your answer, so that like the freedom of that, there is liberty of you to write anything. But when you write specific points, there are chances that you will eventually get more marks because it is mentioned that these are the nature. So we should focus on those specific points only. Yes. So let's begin that nature first of all means the quality or the characteristics of culture only. So characteristics are something more different, but still for like at this moment we will consider nature to be like the quality of culture. So the first nature of culture which is being mentioned is that culture for culture I will be using this symbol, that culture is a historically created design for living, created design for living. Yes. Now, second point is that culture is unique to human species. To human species. The third point is that culture is non-genetic. Okay. And fourth point is that culture has unity as well as diversity. As well as diversity. Now, if a question on culture is being directly asked, like if a question is there on culture in 10 marker or it is there in 15 marker question. So in that perspective, you have to write the definition of culture. Then you have to move on to write these 4 points, and within these 4 points you have to write few lines, like you have to write 4 lines on this, 4 line on this, 4 line on this, and with each 4 line you have to give some examples. Okay, and in doing so you will eventually end up writing 2 to 3 pages after like, and 2 to 3 pages, and to make the answer more realistic, you can at the end write the relevance, the application part, the applied anthropology of the importance of studying the nature of culture. You can write about the modern times, the future, how the nature of culture will eventually change over the time. So you can write all these things, and then eventually you will be able to complete your answer. Now, going forward, what we will do is that we will try to study these 4 points specifically in detail. Now, why I'm still doing so? Because in UPSC there has been already been question which was asked on this point, that culture is unique to human species. It was already being asked, and it was asked. I guess it was asked in 10 marker, or it could have been asked in 15 marker also. So this is not a problem. Anyone can ask. Anyone can answer any of these questions. But problem is that we have to write an answer from the subject perspective. Yes. So today we will be studying these in detail, these 4 points in detail. And when we are studying this in detail, I believe that after studying in detail, you can easily write an answer considering like you have to put in 4 points. So you can easily take up 4 points and make a answer out of that. Yes. So let's study the first point, that is culture is an historically created design for living. So there are few terms in this statement. First is historically, yes. Second is created, and third is a design for what? Design for living. Yes. So this is the first statement which we are studying. These are the three terms. Now we have to focus on. Let's focus on this part, created. So we have already studied that culture is something which is learned. Yes, we studied that culture is learned, but at the same time, culture is also being created. Yes, culture is being created by whom? By humans only. There may be many factors who are contributing to this process of creating culture, but it is created by humans only, and for whom? For humans only. Yes, so it is being created by humans. First point. What is the purpose of culture being created? The purpose is that it defines the mode of behavior, the pattern, how one should behave in a particular institution, in a particular society, in family, and everything. So the main purpose is that it is a design for living. It is the main purpose. It is an end. It is a purpose-driven approach that culture defines the design for living. It is a design for living. Yes, for example, incest taboo. Yes, so incest taboo becomes a part of culture. And by incest taboo, what happens that a person in family maintains distance, have a certain degree of intimacy uh, with certain person, and it is being regulated. For example, if incest taboos were not there, if taboo was not there and only incest was there, if taboos were not there, so what will happen? It will lead to chaos. The institution of family will eventually degrade. Yes, the family will degrade. We will have animal-like features. Yes. So, like we will study incest taboo in detail when we'll move forward. But this is an example which you can write here. Now, let's focus upon historically. What is historically? Historically can be related to history. That is chronologically, it was in history in past. It was created by humans uh, so that people in that particular society can operate in a particular manner. So when you're studying historically created design, like if you have to answer this question, you need the knowledge of various other fields. Specifically, if you study So if you look at the syllabus in 1.2, it says that a relationship with other disciplines. So in this other discipline, it also includes history. Yes, so we study anthropology and history and its relation. So if we have studied this part, we will be eventually able to write this answer. Secondly, when we are trying to relate anthropology with history, uh, we study that for anthropology there are four branches. Yes, now if in these four branches there are few branches which are more important, which are more linked to history. What are those branches? First, for me, which I believe is the archaeological anthropology. Yes. So if you look at the syllabus of archaeological anthropology, you will find that cultures have been mentioned, and cultures have been mentioned. The syllabus has been defined in that manner that you will be able to like easily answer this question. Secondly, which I believe is socio-cultural anthropology, because we are talking about culture, so it makes sense that socio-cultural anthropology will, of course, be mentioned. Now, after these two, these are the most two important branches. After this, you can use biological anthropology and linguistic anthropology to just give one or 2 points. But our main focus should be on archaeological anthropology and sociocultural anthropology. Yes. So if you're trying to justify this statement, so you have to begin with archaeological anthropology. From where? From our Paleolithic culture. Yes. Paleolithic culture. You should not begin from your primate phase, that is the phase when we were studying about the your like we were studying about Australopithecus and all this. So we don't have to start from there. We have to start from Paleolithic because it was at this moment that culture was being shaped. If you look at the syllabus, you will find that first, like the topic says cultural evolution, a broad outline of prehistoric cultures. So in that, the first culture is mentioned Paleolithic. Then other cultures are also mentioned. Yes. So if you have to answer this question, you have to start from Paleolithic culture, then move and make write other cultures. Like for example, you can write Neolithic culture. Then after that, you can write about Iron Age and Copper Age, like Indus Valley civilization can be mentioned. After this, you can move to medieval phase, and then you can go to the modern phase. And in modern phase, you can link sociocultural anthropology and write the particular answer. Now remember, when you're trying to answer this question, you have to show how in history humans created culture. Yes, human created culture, and this culture was a design for living. So this should be your basic framework, design for living. Yes. So human created factors will be there which forced humans to create culture. Now culture was created for what? For uh, having a particular pattern of behavior. Yes. So this is basically how you will approach this statement. Like for example, let's try to answer this question in a more detailed manner. For example, if this question comes in a 10 marker, culture is historically created, designed for living. Then start with a definition. After this, when you start the definition, we will just write that in history, the culture there have been various cultures which have been going on and was formed, which eventually led to the evolution and for the construction of cultures for living purposes. So you can mention about Paleolithic culture. Uh, in Paleolithic culture, you can mention how stone tools were being made, and this stone tool culture no, resulted into the changes in food habits, and with this food habits, there were change in humans eventually, and with evolution we made the changes. Similarly, going forward, you can like refer to Neolithic culture is must because it is a very important phase. Neolithic culture is also referred to a Neolithic revolution. Here you will write uh, that the domestication of plants and animals started at this phase, at this moment. Domestication of plants and animals started at this moment, and this was a part of culture. This became a part of culture. If you look at today, if you relate it to today, even the same thing, that is agriculture, is being practiced in the similar manners which were being practiced in the earlier phase. There hasn't been any like there of course there have been changes, but the agriculture process is still the same. Similarly, the animal rearing and everything has also been continued. So the culture which was developed at during the Neolithic phase, during the Neolithic revolution, has continued even till today. So it is a design which was created in past. It was created in history, and today we are following this. Yes. Similarly, if you look into the Chalcolithic phase, the Chalcolithic phase can be related to the village studies of today. Yes, how Chalcolithic phase, uh, the huts, the agrarian life was being set up, how settlements were being there, and if you look at the present context, the villages are still being in the same, and this whole thing was very much is true for India, true in Indian anthropological perspective. Yes. So this is how you will be writing the particular answer. After like you have written Paleolithic, Neolithic, you have written Chalcolithic, you can write about Iron Age, one two line. Then from Iron Age moves to medieval, how the influence of religions, how the influence of Islam brought in the changes. Then you can move into the modern phase. In modern times, you can easily then write about the current happening, the current forces of globalization, modernization, how these forces are shaping culture and bringing about changes in the lives of individuals. So a lot of things are there to write in this question, and you will find that it is actually very easy to answer this question. Just remember that while writing this answer, mention few anthropologists, few archaeologists. No, it will put in more impact. For example, here write God and child. Yes, in Indus Valley civilization, when we were talking about the Indus Valley civilization, so you write about Dayanam Saini, R.D. Banerjee, and similarly you can go on and mention names. It will put in good impact. You can also mention about biological anthropology and everything, but all these things will even like give you good impact, good marks, so that you can easily get marks. After this, the second part is that culture is a unique for human species. We will studying this in more detail. Okay, so we have studied this. Now, actually, before starting the second point, like if possible, anyone who is looking at who is doing this video, try to answer the above question in a detailed manner and post it in the comment section, or just practice it by yourself. So it is a kind of a homework for yourself. And like for the above question to be answered, you first need to have a understanding. You need to have understanding. You need to have studied archaeological anthropology. So keep this in mind when you had studied archaeological anthropology. Then at that moment you could write this answer. Yes. Now let's move on to the second part. That is that culture is unique to human species. unique to human species. Now, when you talk, this question was being asked in 10 markers, and there have been like many studies which are already been going on over the world regarding to prove this, and like it holds true. But we try to find if there are other species who show similar kind of features. Like if we look at a closer family members to human species, that is the apes, the orangutans. So you'll find that they have certain kind of features. We have seen that they try to communicate. They have features which are very much common to us. Similarly, if you look at a parrot, you will find that the, there are few parrots who may be able to speak a few features, few words of English of Hindi if you teach them. Similarly goes for dogs also. Now, what we are trying to prove here is that even though there are species other than human who show some features, who show some features of culture, like who show some features of culture, who some features of humans, like language, like cognitive doing activities. So, despite these activities, the species still does not have culture. Like other species, despite having few features, like few features, showing few features, they do not show they do not show culture. They do not have culture. So this is what the question is talking about. This is why it is said that culture is unique to human species. Now, now when you are trying to answer this question, where we will start from? We will start from a definition. Yes. So give a definition. Moving forward, write about McGray. So McGrew was the first person who observed this, who brought this debate into discussion. Yes. So McGrew, I will write for you. McGrew, 1998. He observed what is that he observed that non-human non-human primates. So we are also a primate, but in primate classification there are also other species. Yes. So he observed that in non-human primates, they also engage in social activities. Yes. So they also engage in social activities that show a resemblance, that show basic characteristics of humans, that show basic characteristics of humans. Yes. So he was the first person who showed he observed that there were non-human primates who show human social activities that show resemblance of humans. To prove this, now you have to give justification to this that where this thing was shown, what social activities were they were doing. So it could be used. It could be shown that there was a question also in prelims that tool stick stick use by apes. The tool used by apes. There was a question in UPSC prelims that the orangutans were the ones who no they use stick, and humans also they use stick. So tool used by apes, for example, orangutan. Similarly, there was gesture communication. Jane Goodall, gesture communication in chimpanzees was observed by Jane Goodall. Jane Goodall. Similarly, in Japanese, there are many studies which are already being going on. You find that in Kawaii, in Kawaii University, what is happening that they with particular experimentations, they have shown that the Japanese monkeys are indulged. They can easily do the peeling or they can do the washing of potatoes. Yeah. Similarly, in Kyoto University, in Kyoto University, what they have observed that the chimpanzees were able were able to play computers. They were able to play computer games. So if you search on internet, you will find that a chimpanzee is sitting here. Here a chimpanzee is sitting, and there is a monitor. On monitor, there are few numbers which are being flashed, and the chimpanzee, after this number has been flashed, the chimpanzee is able to identify where these numbers are. So it is kind of a memory game in which chimpanzees are eventually playing more better than many humans. Yes. So if you study see this, that chimpanzees are able to recognize these symbols, you'll find that these chimpanzees have cognitive. These chimpanzees have symbol recognition abilities. Symbol recognition abilities, and we have studied that symbolic symbols are an important part of culture. When we studied the features of culture, we studied that symbols are important part of culture. That is, culture was being manifested in the form of symbols. So, if symbol now chimpanzees are also showing similar form of symbol recognition. But what happened that that it is true that chimpanzees were able to recognize symbols, but as per as per Leslie White, Leslie White and other symbolic anthropologists and other symbolic anthropologists, culture culture like uh, culture does not only means recognition. Culture does not only mean recognition, it also means bestowing meaning. Yes, that you give meaning to a particular symbol. And this is where the apes, the chimpanzees, they lack in culture. That they are able to recognize, definitely they are able to recognize, and this recognition has taken place after a particular training phase. But this recognition does not mean that they are able to give meaning to it. If you talk about humans, if you talk about a particular object or something, so for humans, for different humans, there will be variety, there will be diversity in how they approach a particular symbol. Yes, yes. So the humans can bestow meaning on symbols. For example, you give like for example, friendship band is also a form of a symbol only. Our flags is also a form of a symbol. We have connections with our particular with our flag. But for a chimpanzee, for a ape, flags do not show any symbolic meanings. They cannot give meaning to the flags. Yes, but humans, we give meaning to our particular flag. It holds true for other objects as well. Like temple is one symbolic representation. When we talk about totemic religion, so in totemic religion, what happened that they have totemic symbolism. For example, um, for example, for example, for Hindus, we believe that cows are sacred. We have sacred connections with a cow. But for chimpanzee, for apes to to have particular kind of connection is very difficult. They will not be able to do this. When we humans using religion was able to bestow a meaning to the cows, what happened that we set up a pattern of behavior, we set up a design of living, and based on this design we find that today that we worship them and have different means of connections with it. Yes, but this whole thing is missing in apes. That is why what these symbolic anthropologists say that apes contain proto culture. They contain proto culture, not true culture, but proto culture. And what is proto culture? Proto culture is something which lacks moral forces. Yes, there was a statement in culture when we were studying. I gave you that statement that culture, that morality is a part of culture. That culture has morality as its part. But for apes, this thing does not exist. Yes, for them to differentiate between right and wrong is very much different. They don't know what may be good for them. They may know what may be good for them, but but these things for them are more physically shaped. Like it works on the principle of pain and harm. But in humans, we have a connection of sympathy. We have empathy. We have emotions, and apes miss that emotional aspect, and that is why it is believed that apes have protoculture. It also can be seen in the form of language communication. Yes. So language is also a form was also a result of culture. In apes or in other species, language is still not developed. Language is still not developed. Still not developed. So culture has not been able to develop language in them, and it can be said that culture does not exist for them. Yes, there may be some form of proto-culture, but culture does not exist for them. However, for humans, what we did that using culture, using certain practices, we were able to form languages, and different places around the world had different kind of languages. Yes, so we can see that there is variety in how cultures have shaped different languages, and based on these different languages, even the behavior, the patterns of the personalities of people changes. So this is what is all whole about in this that culture is unique to human species. If we talk about culture, you can write everything what is given above, and the conclusion part you can just mention, you can give relevances, then you can mention about Michael Tomasello. So he in the conclusion part says that humans are the only ones who are capable of pooling their human cognitive resources. Yes, you can use this as a conclusion that humans are the only one who are capable of pooling their human cognitive resources. Yes, so this is how you can conclude and prove that a culture is unique to human species only. So after going to the second point, we will now move on to the third point. The third point is something which I will believe that is, is related to another discipline. Now, culture is non-genetic. When we look at the word genetic, so you can directly make a connection that it will be related to physical anthropology. So you have to answer this question. You need to have an understanding of physical anthropology, what physical anthropology is. You have to give writings of some genes, how genetic studies are being done, and then you have to relate it to culture. Yes. So culture does has huge, like what I would suggest that you can even go, you can write that in a particular population, like in X population, a particular genetic sequences have been found. Yes, but this does not genetic sequence and has been found, and in that particular population, C culture was present. Similarly, in Y population, a similar genetic sequence was found, but here the culture was different. So this is how you have to try to answer this question. That is, culture is non-genetic. Yes. So yes. So this should be your approach. Apart from this, I will like. So if uh, after giving the physical anthropological part of this, you should also give some examples to it. For example, if we talk about India, India is a classic example which you can give. In India, culture exists. Culture has so high diversity that you can easily address this question. You will find that in a particular population, in a particular area, the culture is this in a particular in a different area, the culture will be different. You can mention about north south cultural differences, but at the same time similarity in genetic studies. You can link you can link racial racial studies to culture. Yes. So when you are linking with, these are all our examples. So when you are writing all these examples, you have to show that genes has no say in in uh, in defining cultures. Yes, so it is not the genes which is defining culture, but it is different factors which are coming to play to form culture. Now, what are these factors which we'll be studying here? One thing which is primary, it is the social learning. That it is the social factors which are primarily shaping our culture. Yes, it is the social factors which are primarily affecting the cultures and not the biological factors. However, and not the biological factors. In biological factors, what? In biological factor, your genes. Yes. However, environment. Remember this. However, environment could bring about changes in your biology, which then can bring about changes in culture. Yes. But it is your environmental determinism which is ultimately shaping your culture. Yeah. Now, if we again try to, like, when we talk about parents, now the parents, what they to try to do, that transmit they transmit culture, yes, to their children. But if we talk about animals, in animals what we have seen that they are not able to transmit culture to their offsprings. That is, they don't transmit, but it was what it is observed that in animals the behavior, the culture which is being observed in offspring is inherited. It is by birth. It is an inherent behavior. Yes, but in humans, it is not inherited. That it is not a concept of genes, but it is being transmitted to the children. Now, to prove this, you have to mention this case study of Kroeber, Alfred Kroeber. What he did, is that he studied the humans first, and then he studied the ants. In this case, what he did that he hatched ant eggs in desert island. Yes, and he found that the ants operated, that they functioned in the same manner as the ants were operating in their original environment. Yes, so he so for example, there was an environment in which ants were operating. He separated a particular population, and then he had that particular ants into a deserted area. And the behavior, the pattern of the movement, what these ants were doing and what these ants were doing were similar. But then he studied the humans and found that it was not true for them. It was not true for them. Humans in a particular environment operated different from other humans in different environment. And this is what Kroger did. Here you can also talk about uh, the, the the example of no McClever which he gave about. So yeah, you can also talk about the McClever which no, he gave three. He cited some cases about which I studied. I told in society about that a Hindu girl was found in a wolf den in 1920. And then you can talk about Caspar Hewson. So you can also mention that the culture defined their features. That when he was discovered in 17 years in a forested area, his pattern of behavior was very much different from what is being found in the current context. Here you can also write how how the primitive peoples, uh, like they function differently from the people from the main islands. In Indian perspective, you can write about Andaman Nicobar Islands, tribes like Champagne, Nicobaris, and you can write that these tribes have been working and have been in isolation for many years, and so their cultures are very much different from the mainland Indian culture. So, and if you study this, you will find that the genes here are very much similar to the genes here. Also, one more value addition which you can write is about the Human Genome Project. There was a Human Genome Project in which they found that the humans over different places show 99.99% similarity in genes. Similarity in genes. So 0.001% genes being responsible for cultures is very difficult and very challenging. So this is where you can go on to conclude the particular answer. This is it. Now let's move on to the fourth point. And what was the fourth one? Like fourth point was that culture has both unity and diversity. Yeah. So here we will study that culture is both unity as well as diversity. So it is a very common approach to write this. Like there are ample of things, but I will just simply explain to you what this means. It simply says that humans they definitely have a culture. Every human at every place of time will have culture to some extent. For some, it may be simple, for others, it may be complex. But the presence of culture will be there so that they exist. Yes, if you approach from functionalist functionalist point of view, yes, you will find that uh, that that every human has same biological needs. Every human has same biological needs, and because of same biological needs, same biological and derived needs, if we go into the study from Malinowski's point of view, because of same biological and derived needs, every human organization or every human, they devise culture to fulfill these. Yes, so that is why we say that culture has unity. Now, what does diversity means? So, diversity basically means that even though we have culture, even though our needs are same, even though our derived needs are same, and to fulfill these needs, we form culture, but it does not mean that the culture which is being formed will operate in the same manner to fulfill this. It means that there may be different ways. There may be different ways to fulfill the same needs, and these different ways are, are based on multiple factors. For example, it will be based on technology, it will be based on environment, it will be based on the resources. Yes, so based on different factors, cultures are devised, and these devices are fulfill our biological needs. Yes, so culture has unity, definitely culture has unity, but the way in culture operates, the way culture is formed, the way it fulfills our needs has diversity. In this perspective, you can write about political anthropology, you can write about socio cultural anthropology, and economic anthropology. Yes, in political anthropology, you can write about how state is operating, how state as an institution is forming culture, how tribes are forming cultures, and how they regulate resources to fulfill the needs. Yes, in tribes, how they are forming culture to fulfill the needs. This is how you can go on to write some answer. Uh, this could also be asked in 10 marker, and it is very easy to write. Uh, you need to like mention few anthropologists in every field. When you're talking about political anthropology, you can write about Paul Bowen, and yes, in economic anthropology, write Malinowski. So this is how you can approach this question. There are many ways to approach this question, and it is actually very easy. So I guess we have completed this the nature, the part of culture. So as discussed, there are like four statements which must be there in your in your answer. And apart from these four statements, you have liberty to write other factors as well. Yes. So that's it for today. Tomorrow we will study. I guess tomorrow we will study the elements of culture. And thank you, everyone.